magical folk, welcome back to my channel. I hope you're all keeping safe and well. Today we are doing another background life story of Harry Potter characters. Today's character is going to be Professor Minerva McGonagall. She is one of my ultimate favourite characters, and you know what, delving into her past I learned so much more about her and I was absolutely fascinated, so I can't wait to share this story with you. It is going to be slightly long. Her backstory, guys, is massive. I didn't even realise delving into this that the backstories went back so far. It's crazy. Like, J.K. Rowling really went into detail about each background of each of her characters. It's intense, but fascinating at the same time. So yeah, let's get into it. Don't forget, guys, if you are new and you haven't done already, then please hit the subscribe button to become part of my little magical community, and turn on the notification bells as well to be notified every time I upload a video. And you can always go and check me out on my social media. Big shout out as well to my patrons. You guys are amazing. If you are interested in joining us on Patreon, the link will be in the description down below and you can go and check it out. Okay, so Minerva McGonagall was born in Scotland on the 4th of October. There is no year. I looked everywhere to find the year that she was born. There is no date of birth. So yeah, just the 4th of October. And she was named after her maternal grandmother. Her parents were Isabel and Robert McGonagall. And she had two younger brothers who were called Malcolm and Robert Jr. Now, Robert was a muggle, but Isabel was a witch, a fact that she hadn't shared with her husband. She had actually given up her magical abilities for the love of Robert. Isabel was forced to confess her wizarding abilities when an infant Minerva displayed small but noticeable signs of magic ability. She would inadvertently summon toys, made the family cat do her bidding, and her father's bagpipes would play themselves, which always made her chuckle. Isabel would normally seclude herself and Minerva for days at a time, but she would eventually confess to her husband, explaining that she was bound by the International Statute of Secrecy and that she concealed the truth for their safety. Robert and Isabel remained together despite this shocking revelation, but sadly the trust between them was never quite the same. But they of course went on to have Malcolm and Robert Jr., both of whom revealed magical abilities of their own in due course. Minerva would help her mother conceal any magical mishaps to save her father any embarrassments. She was very close to her father, whom she followed in temperament. On her 11th birthday, Minerva received her Hogwarts acceptance letter under the headmaster Armando Dibbit. During her sorting, the hat took 5.5 minutes to determine whether or not Minerva belonged in Gryffindor or Ravenclaw, but of course eventually it did land on Gryffindor. During her time at Hogwarts, Minerva befriended a Hufflepuff student by the name of Pomona Sprout, and the two became very close. Minerva was an outstanding student and had a particular talent for transfiguration, this subject at the time being taught by Albus Dumbledore. Okay, so off camera I had a mishap. One of my pictures fell and broke. Yeah, absolutely devastated. The frame was completely shot apart. Luckily the glass didn't break. The glass is still intact, but yeah, the actual frame itself did break. So whoops-a-daisy, I'm gonna have to get a new frame for that picture. So yeah, magical mishaps. Anyway, back to the story. So by the end of her education at Hogwarts, Minerva had an impressive record. She had top grades in all of her owls and newts. She was made a prefect and eventually head girl. And she was the winner of Transfiguration Today's Most Promising Newcomer Award. Minerva had also managed to become an animagus, a tabby cat with very distinctive markings, square spectacled markings around her eyes. And she registered her form with the Ministry of Magic. Minerva also proved to be a talented Quidditch player. However, she suffered a nasty fall in her final year in a match between Gryffindor and Slytherin, a match that would decide the winner of the Quidditch Cup. This fall left her with a concussion, several broken ribs, and a lifelong desire to see Slytherin crushed on the Quidditch pitch. After graduating Hogwarts, Minerva was offered a position at the Department for Magical Law Enforcement at the Ministry of Magic. She returned to her family home for one last summer with her family before making the move to London. It was during these few months that Minerva met Dougal McGregor, a local muggle who was handsome, funny and intelligent. The two shared a sense of humour, argued fiercely and suspected mysterious depths within each other. They fell head over heels in love with each other, and Dougal proposed to Minerva, which she happily accepted. That night, however, Minerva was unable to share her happy news with her parents, realising that marrying a muggle who didn't know she was a witch would mean that she would follow in her mother's footsteps and live unhappily with her wand locked away and shredding all of her ambitions. Early the next morning, Minerva went to Dougal and told him that she had changed her mind and she couldn't marry him, aware that if she broke the International Statute of Secrecy and told him why, she could lose her job at the ministry. So she couldn't give him a reason for her change of heart, leaving him devastated, and she immediately left for London. These months proved to be some of the most difficult Minerva had ever faced. Due to her recent heartbreak, Minerva didn't much enjoy her home in London or her workplace. Some of her co-workers had an ingrained anti-Muggle bias. Given her adoration of her Muggle father and her continued love for Dougal, she deplored these ideas. Despite this, Minerva was among the most efficient, gifted employees in the Department of Magical Law Enforcement, and she became fond of her much older boss, Elphinstone Urquhart. I really hope I'm saying that right, because that's a really hard name to say. After 2 years, Minerva was offered a prestigious promotion, but she turned it down after she found herself missing her home in Scotland. Instead, she sent a letter to Hogwarts School of Witchcraft and Wizardry to ask if she may be considered for a teaching post. The owl returned within hours, offering her a position within the Transfiguration Department under Albus Dumbledore. Minerva proved to be an inspirational yet strict teacher, maintaining control of her students with a stern hand that made her someone not to be messed with. At this point, Minerva was shocked to learn from her mother, who didn't know at this point that Minerva had been in love with him, that Dougal had married the daughter of a farmer nearby. Albus found his former student in tears in her classroom late that evening, and Minerva confessed the whole story to him. Albus offered comfort and confided some of his own family history. The confidences exchanged that night formed the basis of a lasting friendship. Among her first students were Newt Scamander and Lita Lestrange. Through her early years teaching at Hogwarts, Minerva remained close friends with her former boss in the ministry, Elphinstone. During one visit, he proposed to Minerva at Madame Puddifoot's tea shop. Surprised, embarrassed, and still a little bit in love with Dougal, she declined. However, the two still remained close and in contact for years. Later in her career, Minerva rose to the head of Transfiguration Department and was appointed the position of head of Gryffindor House. After he became headmaster, Albus Dumbledore would also entrust her enough to make her deputy headmistress and fill in for him on the occasions of his absence. After the first rise of the Dark Wizard Lord Voldemort, Minerva took part in fighting against him and his Death Eaters whilst still teaching at Hogwarts. She was suspicious of Riddle during his time at school, even though she wasn't his teacher, and shared her fears with Dumbledore in private. Minerva chose not to join the First Order of the Phoenix, but she did spend many nights secretly spying for the Order in her tabby cat form, and would bring the Aura's crucial information on the activities of Voldemort's followers. Minerva herself made it through the war against Voldemort unscathed. However, she did suffer personal bereavements. The loss of her brother Robert Jr., 2 of her favourite students, James and Lily Potter, and of Dougal McGregor, who was murdered in a random anti-Muggle attack by Death Eaters, he along with his wife and 2 children. This news was devastating to Minerva, who wondered if she had married him, would she have been able to save him. After the deaths of Lily and James Potter, Minerva travelled to Surrey and spent the entire day observing the Dursley family to check that they were up for the responsibility of looking after their son Harry. What she saw horrified her. She deemed them the worst sort of muggles imaginable. She was present, along with Rubeus Hagrid, when Dumbledore placed Harry upon the Dursleys' front step. She did keep a close eye on Harry from time to time during his early childhood years, as did several members of the Order of the Phoenix. Minerva continued with her career at Hogwarts, teaching the art of transfiguration. Elphinstone, who had never stopped loving Minerva, proposed several times until she finally accepted after Dougal's death. Their engagement happened after a summertime stroll around the Black Lake at Hogwarts. The retired Elphinstone bought a small cottage for the 2 of them in Hogsmeade, so that Minerva could travel easily to work every day. The pair had no children, but Minerva's niece and nephew visited often, something that Minerva absolutely adored. In 1985, 3 years into their marriage, Elphinstone died from a venomous tentacular bite. Minerva, devastated, couldn't bear to live in the cottage alone. She packed up her things after her husband's funeral and returned to live in Hogwarts Castle. Being a brave and private person, Minerva poured all her energy into her teaching, and few people, except Albus, ever realised how much she suffered. In 1991, Nicholas Flamel, a friend of Albus Dumbledore's, had the Philosopher's Stone moved from his safe at Gringotts to Hogwarts for safekeeping. Minerva contributed to the defences of the stone by transfiguring an enormous chess set and animating it to behave as a normal wizard's chess set would. Also in this year, Harry Potter, whom Minerva had been watching for several years prior, would start his education at Hogwarts. Harry was of course placed into Gryffindor House, and once again under the watchful eye and care of Professor McGonagall. While she maintained her strict persona in regards to Harry, she wasn't above bending the rules on the odd occasion. An example is when she caught Harry lying on a broomstick without proper supervision. Instead of expelling him, she put him up for Gryffindor's Seeker. She also made arrangements for Harry to have a Nimbus 2000, which was the fastest broom at the time. However, several incidents marred the year. At Halloween, a troll got set loose in the dungeons. Minerva was shocked to discover a wrecked bathroom, an unconscious troll, and 3 first-year students. Torn between anger and pride, Minerva took 5 points from Hermione Granger, but awarded 5 points each to Harry and Ron for sheer dumb luck. Her serious side appeared one night when she caught Draco Malfoy, Harry, Hermione and Neville Longbottom out of bed late at night. She deducted 50 points from each of them and they all received attention. Okay, so skipping ahead a little bit to 1995. The Second Wizarding War had started. This time Minerva joined the Order of the Phoenix. She would spend much of the summer doing work for the Order. Whilst back at Hogwarts, Minerva was forced to endure Dolores Umbridge, whom the Ministry had appointed the new Defence Against the Dark Arts teacher. She treated Umbridge with as little credence and respect as possible, and even gave Peeves tips on how to unscrew a chandelier when he was trying to cause havoc for Umbridge. During Umbridge's appointment as High Inquisitor, Minerva kept her temper under control, maintaining an icy exterior and yet still unleashed a dry and pointed wit on Umbridge. Minerva, however, finally did lose her temper with Umbridge when she continually interrupted Harry Potter's 5th year career advice. Dolores declared that Harry would never become an Auror at the Ministry. Minerva declared that she would help Harry become an Auror if it was the last thing she ever did. Umbridge and a number of Aurors attempted to evict Hagrid during a late-night owl examination. Minerva sought to intervene. She charged out of the castle shouting for them to leave Hagrid alone. Before she was able to draw her wand, Minerva was hit by 4 stunning spells square in the chest and had to be treated at St. Mungo's Hospital for several weeks. Minerva participated in the Battle of the Astronomy Tower in 1997, after Draco Malfoy snuck several Death Eaters into the school through the Room of Requirement. During the fight, Minerva duelled and personally dispatched Death Eater Alecto Caro and sent her running for cover. Minerva was devastated to learn of Snape's murder of Albus Dumbledore, the man that she had known nearly her whole life as a teacher, a mentor and a friend, murdered by a man she had trusted. Minerva held Dumbledore's funeral at Hogwarts. She took over as headmistress but struggled to deal with the death of her friend. As the war continued, Minerva remained at Hogwarts even after Voldemort's takeover. This was to ensure as little harm as possible came to the students, and she acted as an insider, passing on the goings-on at Hogwarts to the Order. On May 1st, 1998, Harry Potter, Ron Weasley and Hermione Granger returned to the school in search of Rowena Ravenclaw's diadem. She offered to hold Voldemort and his army back whilst Harry fulfilled his quest. She dispatched the 2 Carrows and banished Snape from the school, brandishing him a coward as he fled. Minerva proceeded to animate the castle's suits of armour and statues to help defend the school. She ordered Neville Longbottom, Seamus Finnegan and several other students to destroy the wooden bridge so that snatchers couldn't enter the school grounds. Minerva fought skillfully and would later stand defiant in the lull when Voldemort himself walked into the grounds. It was only when she saw Harry Potter's body being carried by Hagrid that she began to despair. She continued to fight when the battle resumed, and was present when Voldemort's killing curse and Harry's disarming charm connected and rebounded, signalling Voldemort's final defeat. She hugged Harry in an uncharacteristic display of great emotion. With the conclusion of the war, Minerva was awarded the Order of Merlin First Class by the new Minister for Magic, Kingsley Shacklebolt, for her unwavering allegiance to the Order, as well as being featured on her very own chocolate frog card. She was also officially appointed headmistress of Hogwarts after the school had been fully repaired and the protective enchantments restored. She also employed Neville Longbottom in the herbology department under Pomona Sprout and named him her successor as head of Gryffindor House. Now, there is a lot of crossover towards the end of Minerva's story, and it kind of comes into play with the Cursed Child. Now, personally for me, I haven't seen the Cursed Child yet. I haven't read any of the screenplays for Cursed Child, so I didn't want to delve too deeply into that because it does go on for a whole heap longer. So I was like, you know what, we'll end it there with Minerva being the headmistress of Hogwarts. She had Neville Longbottom by her side, Pomona Sprout, and yeah, I can just imagine that she lived a really long and happy life until the end of her days. So that's pretty much where I'm going to leave it for today's video. But wow, I was just gobsmacked actually about how in-depth Minerva's backstory went. The fact that she had fallen in love at such a young age and obviously then was bereft when he later passed. She just had so much heartache in her life, and I felt really, really sorry for her. But I just know what kind of strong person she would have been and how proud she would have been of her students. And I just think she had one of the most amazing lives and just such an amazing backstory. I really, really found it fascinating learning more about her. I really hope you enjoyed today's video, guys. If you did, please give it a magical thumbs up for me so that I know. Don't forget as well, if you haven't done already, to please hit the subscribe button to become part of my little magical community, and to the notification bells on as well to be notified every time I upload a video. And I will see you very soon in the next one. Bye, you guys.